Our opening song today is number 389, Gathered Here. It's in the gray hymnal. Please rise as you're willing and able, and we're going to sing it through 3 times. We bid you welcome. We do not ask what you believe or expect you to think a certain way, but only that you try to live a kindly, helpful life with the dignity proper to a human being. Welcome all who believe that religion is wider than any sect and deeper than any set of opinions. Welcome all who might find in our friendship strength and encouragement for daily living. Good morning. Good morning. My name is Beverly Church, and I'm service leader today, and my pronouns are she and her. Thank you for spending your Sunday morning with us, whether enjoying the service in person or watching online. I'd like to extend a special welcome to any visitors today. After the service, we invite you to stay for coffee and conversation downstairs in our reception hall. Joys and sorrows will be shared later in the service. You can come to the microphone or text your name and your joy or sorrow to the phone number that's listed on page 2 of your order of service. Please take a moment now to silence your phones, but don't turn them off. You're encouraged to share on social media that you are attending today's service. And now, are there any announcements? Okay. Please check the UUCF website or emails for other announcements about upcoming events.
Drone, and I have the honor of serving as the minister here at UCF, and my pronouns are she and hers. For our chalice lighting today, our words come from Lois Van Leer. They write, "We light this chalice on the brink of a new year, letting go of what has been, open and hopeful for what may come, renewed, restored, ready to live life fully anew. May we move forward with intention." And now I invite you to read the UCF mission statement together. It's on the second page of your order of service. And I encourage you to really contemplate the words as we say them together. We seek answers everywhere, include everyone, and live with compassion. Going into our meditation moment today, I invite you to get comfortable in your seat, wherever you are. Notice how you're holding your body. Are you tight in your shoulders? Maybe you're tight in your stomach. Maybe you're feeling some tension in your chest. Whatever that is, to notice that for yourself. Bring all your attention here into this beautiful space together. Bring your whole body in. And let us take a moment of silence together. Let us take a deep breath in and out. Holding that spirit of meditation, I encourage you to think on these words. We are about to arrive. We are almost in the new year. Can you believe it? Soon we will cross the boundary of time into the next year with all of its resolutions and plans and schedules ahead of us. Let us pause for just this moment before we move boldly onward into what may still come. Let us pause to feel the presence of all of those in this room, to know their presence in our lives. Let us pause to feel the presence of all those in our lives, whoever they are, and the roles that they occupy for us. Let us feel their presence in this room or beyond. Let us pause to consider the trees, their branches stripped bare, their elegant architecture on display that we can see so well in the deep of winter. Let us pause to feel the spirit of life and love that ties us to each other, that winds its way through our very bones and settles deep into our hearts. Before we move forward into the coming year, let us notice what it is that remains every year, every day. What exists beyond schedules and months, beyond time. It welcomes us to life, not just at the start of the year, but every day. And let us answer, Amen, blessed be, yes. Let us join together. You may remain seated for this, to join together in singing number 123, Spirit of Life, in your gray hymnal. Today, like every Sunday is a little bit of an experiment. So I appreciate you all being willing to experiment in even just in your ways of coming up a little bit more forward, maybe a little bit out of your comfort zone. So thank you for doing that. Over the last few months, in addition to talking about our monthly theme, I've been trying to sprinkle in a few services that are about what many people refer to as spiritual practice, or you can think of them as personal development practice, something that helps you to be centered and focused and to think about how you might grow spiritually or maturationally. There is this wonderful, a long time ago, I learned of this idea of emotional intelligence and how emotional intelligence helps us actually, in many ways, a lot more than book intelligence, because it helps us to be more connected, more centered, more aware, and improving our relationships with people. And so some of these practices that we do can help us actually to live our principles, live what we say we believe. It's not enough, I don't think, to say, I believe in the very beginning of your gray hymnal, then you'll see like the list of our 7 principles. We've talked about values and so on, but it's not enough to just say that, right? It's not enough to just say, oh yes, these are the things that we all agree to, but actually living them takes a whole lot of work. Have you ever tried actually living the inherent worth and dignity of all people? Have you noticed how that is not an easy thing to do? And now you have to keep working at it because it doesn't just like, oh, I'm done doing that. Nope, because life just keeps giving you opportunities to try it out again, doesn't it? Once again, there's one more person that you're like, I don't know, does that person have inherent worth and dignity? I don't know. So that questioning keeps us in the space of saying, well, maybe there's more for me to learn. Maybe I don't have it all figured out, because of course none of us do. It's always an ongoing process. So it's not enough. We have on our, in the hallway there are the whole 7 principles written out, but if you ever want a refresher, they're also on the inside of the gray hymnal they're not page numbered, so it's about page 5. And if you go down, then there's this list of 5 principles. But the inherent worth and dignity is one that we focus on the most. So that one is particularly challenging because we find people to be challenging no matter where they are, and even within our own community where we're like, oh, these are the people who we all think alike and act alike, and we have these same things, and yet we still have moments of conflict because we're people. No matter who or where we are, or what kind of political beliefs we might have in common, what kind of things that we're like, we have arrived, we still have ways that we interact that are challenging. Maybe we disagree on some things, and then we get stuck sometimes in those areas because we haven't learned how to move forward with that and how to actually work through some things where we have some differences. And so towards that end, then one of the things that I've been trying to bring forward are different ways of practicing. So what does it mean to practice? So I think of like David and I, we have these conversations because he does ice skating. And so when you do any kind of physical activity that especially requires balance and skill, you have to do it over and over and over and over again because it trains not just your body, but your mind. So you're building this muscle memory of, oh yes, if this move happens, the rest of your body is trained to move into that. And so our spiritual practices are the same because they help us to go back to, oh yes, I really do believe in inherent worth and dignity. That gives you back this is the space I want to come back to and be focused on. But it takes practice. You know, like even coming here on a Sunday, there are many different reasons to come here for a Sunday morning. But even just coming here, I believe, is also a spiritual practice of coming into a space where not everything is about you, and we all have to learn how to work together. We all have different wants and needs in the space, and some Sundays a song may appeal to you. Some Sundays we may have music that doesn't appeal to you at all. And that's okay, because we all learn how to listen to each other and not put our own needs first. I look at it in terms of our larger culture is built around these white supremacy characteristics that tell people your needs are the most important. You as an individual are everything, and you have to build everything around yourself. But if we are in community, then we learn how to listen to each other and support each other and not put our own needs first all the time. And so our spiritual practices can help us because they help us to slow down, pay attention, put something else ahead of ourselves, and not make ourselves be the thing in that moment all of the time. It is very, very hard to do. So that's, I was thinking back on how many years ago when this conversation started happening in the UU world, that I was like many others of going, what are you talking about? A spiritual practice? Like, what in the heck? But then I started to understand how even if you can like remove some of the stigma around the word spiritual and to think on how is it a practice could help me to slow down, could help me connect better with other people, could help me not put myself as the center of everything. Because, and I mentioned this in the fall, but I'll just keep saying it, as a white lady named Karen, where the world has said the world revolves around me, then it takes a lot of work to say, nope, that's not true. To notice when I'm in a situation where something's happening and I'm like, I don't like this, that the practice is to stop, to not say something, to notice like, oh, I don't like what's happening here, but is it actually wrong? Is there actually a crisis happening here? Because most of the time there isn't. 99% of the time there isn't actually a crisis. But we have become so trained, so enculturated that if we don't like something, that we have to immediately make it stop. We have to notice our discomfort and say, no, no, no. But if we can slow down enough to say, hold on, maybe there's something for me to learn. Maybe there's something in this that if I could just listen to this other person, there could be something for me to learn in this. There's a way to grow. And so our spiritual practices help us, whatever they are. They come from a wide variety of practices. And if you read the magnet, the newsletter that went out the other day, you'll see at the end of the month what that month's practice is. I'm very excited. So can't wait for us to experience that together. Every month is something new that we are practicing. And sometimes practicing requires experimentation. It requires being able to maybe have things not go how you planned. Like last Sunday with our pageant Sunday, there were things that we planned. There were things that went way unplanned, moments that could not have, we imagined that went even far better because we didn't say it has to be exactly so. Being able to step out of the exactness, the perfection, keeps us open to what we can still learn. And so I was thinking on about writing itself as a spiritual practice. And so, of course, this job requires a fair amount of writing, but you can look at some work that you do as either a task, a chore, or what can I learn from this? How can I be open to this? There are many different books out there and all kinds of things, what other techniques. There's things like The Artist's Way that talks about doing like 3 pages every morning to help get things out of your head. There are many different methods and techniques for writing. I think of writing as regularly ongoing writing as a way to become more aware of what's happening in the head, and putting it out there and not getting attached to what actually comes out. So I'll say, like, in the writing world, then there's this concept of, I won't say the specific word, but thinking of giving yourself the grace to create a really bad first draft. And that first draft, if you can be okay with, like, it's just not going to be perfect, and that first one out isn't going to meet whatever it is you think the need is, but you can get the words out of your head, because sometimes those words that stay in our head, that we give them a lot of focus, those aren't really helpful. And if we can get those first set out, then eventually the next set that actually is helpful shows up. And I also think of it like the regular practice is sort of like, I think of the analogy of like a gas pump. That if there's a gas pump that hasn't been used in a while, and then you go to it, then it might take a little bit for the gas to come out. But if you go there on a regular basis, then it's easier. The same thing with writing, where if you regularly, what I call priming the pump, then more words, it becomes a little bit easier. It's never going to be like super flowing off the pen unless it's something that you really have an attachment for. And even something you've done a lot of research on could still be difficult. So that process itself is actually slowing down, putting something to page that it doesn't always, you're not always attached to the outcome. The problem is that in our culture, we've gotten so attached to this idea of like creating has to have an outcome. And so if we can think on how like there's art that is about the process, how can I get used to ongoing work in the process of doing versus this thing where I'm attached to this outcome that has to be perfect and beautiful. The more attached we are to this outcome, the harder it actually is to actually bring ourselves to the work all the time. So if we can notice that, where am I stuck? Where is this focus on? Because that what keeps us from being connected to something beyond ourselves. And thinking on how connected with writing is listening. Now, this morning, David brought, we have 2 singing bowls. David played our metal one before we started this morning instead of the chimes over here called tingshas. So he played the metal singing bowl. And so in a few minutes, in a little bit then, he's going to play this white singing bowl over here. Now, in our culture, again, we have this practice where we think we're listening to somebody. How many of you really thought that you're a good listener? And then, at some point, we come to realize our culture has trained us not to actually listen, because what we're listening for is this person, we're hearing the words, and then like there's this point where like, aha, here's this way I can respond to this person. And at that point, we've stopped listening because they're continuing to speak. We're waiting for them to stop so we can jump in and say this thing over here, right? So that's what we've been trained to do because we've been told that shows we're listening. Now, there's some validity to that. But what we've also done in that process is lost our connection to what that person was thinking or feeling or experiencing because we're so invested in showing them something. We are so attached to showing how smart we are, to showing that we have words that matter to them. We want to make the process back to ourselves instead of what does this person need in this moment? And it doesn't have to be like a big crisis this person is going through, but how can we actually practice slowing down and listening? Our world is so much about jumping in, instead of slowing down, noticing our discomfort with the quiet, with that space in between. If you notice sometimes when you're with somebody who is going through a crisis, a lot of times what they need for you is to like literally just be in the room. Sometimes just being in the room, just having your presence with them as they can experience, think, say, feel what they need to say without us jumping in and making it about ourselves. And so when David plays the singing bowl, then what we're going to do together is practice listening. And so with the listening, then he's going to play it for about a minute or two until he feels like he's done. He's going to stand there for just a little bit and then sit down. And we are going to practice not jumping in and making it uncomfortable about ourselves. So this is a hard thing to do, but I believe in you, and I know you can do it. We're going to notice the space, like, oh, okay, you're going to think, you might think, this is how I think. I have to always come back to naming my own stuff. My own stuff is like, oh, okay, this is pretty. And then, oh, how can we make it stop? Because that is what we do in our world, where we want to make the discomfort come to an end. But what if we notice discomfort in our world and we're able to just slow down, pay attention? Maybe the discomfort really isn't discomfort. Maybe there is something there for us in that moment that we just have not been open to yet because we haven't paid attention. And so today we're doing an experiment where 3 people are going to come share a poem that they have written themselves, or a poem that they've read and that is meaningful for them. And then they're going to share a minute or two about why that poem is meaningful for them and what their experience was. And then after that person is done speaking, then David is going to play the glass bowl, and we're going to be silent together. And then the next person, and the next person, and then I will end with one more poem at the end and share a little bit about that. So before I call everybody up, let's just take another moment to just be together and notice your thoughts around words and listening, and just be in this space. Thank you. And now I'm going to call up Bev Church, Daryl Smith, and Anthony Stachowski to come up to the front. We're all going to come up together, and we're going to use the handheld mic. Beverly Church is going to go first.
I'm actually going to provide a brief reflection on the poem before I read it, because I think it'll help you better understand why the poem resonates with me. I hope it resonates with you as well. As many of you know, my husband passed away in July, and this poem, When Great Trees Fall by Maya Angelou, was read at his memorial service in August. Angelou wrote the poem in 1987 after the death of her friend and fellow writer and activist James Baldwin. Though it was written specifically for Baldwin, the poem speaks to me and more generally of the experience of losing someone important to us and the hope and inspiration that we can draw from their existence. When Great Trees Fall by Maya Angelou. When great trees fall, rocks on distant hills shudder, lions hunker down in tall grasses, and even elephants lumber after safety. When great trees fall in forests, small things recoil into silence, their senses eroded beyond fear. When great souls die, the air around us becomes light, rare, sterile. We breathe briefly, our eyes briefly see with a hurtful clarity. Our memory suddenly sharpened, examines, gnaws on kind words unsaid, promised walks never taken. Great souls die, and our reality, bound to them, takes leave of us. Our souls, dependent upon their nurture, now shrink, wizened. Our minds, formed and informed by their radiance, fall away. We are not so much maddened as reduced to the unutterable ignorance of dark, cold caves. And when great souls die, after a period, peace blooms, slowly and always irregularly. Spaces fill with a kind of soothing electric vibration. Our senses restored, never to be the same, whisper to us, they existed, they existed. We can be and be better, for they existed.
My poem is called I Saw the Moon Today.
Please use the mic so people.
I saw the moon today, an alabaster bowl for heaven's fruit, hiding amidst a smear of wispy clouds, the sign of wonders waiting. I saw the moon today, a big, bright, glorious globe suspended high above the pines. There's magic in that sphere. I saw the moon today, bouncing off the water, two moons shining, shimmering in the breeze, celestial twins enchanting. And looking up, I searched the sky, yet saw no moon. Dark clouds, rolling, churning. Even in such turmoil, my spirit knew this friend was there. My soul looked again, and I saw the moon today. Yeah, I wrote this poem in Palm Springs, California, and I was there. I had walked downtown on some time off.
Daryl, use the mic.
Oh, I'm sorry. I had walked downtown on some time off, and I saw a sliver of a moon. It looked like a bowl, you know. And I immediately turned around and walked back to the hotel, and I wrote that poem in my head while I was walking back to the hotel. And it was so, it impacted me so much. I'd fallen in love with the moon a year or two before that. When I saw the moon rise that appeared like the sunset, I realized I was looking in the wrong direction, you know. So I said, that's the moonrise. So anyway, the moon means something special to me, not unlike the sun with the winter solstice. But yeah, so when I wrote that poem, I saw, so there was so much there, like a bowl for heaven's fruit. It was perfect. You know, it's like Yeah, that's up there, and it's a sign of wonders waiting, a sign of the moon yet to come, and a sign of the fruit from heaven, you know? So all those things it wrote itself, really. And but it really filled me up from the inside out, you know? So that's what that means to me.
Thank you.
Make sure I don't grab the grocery list. The name of God. We all have our personal names. I suspect it's the same with God. And I think I know what it is. If the prefix EU means pleasant, well, and good, and the root word gene means origin of noble birth, then wouldn't Eugene be the perfect name of God? And dealing with God wouldn't seem so formal. Now, when you prayed, you could say, Eugene, who art in heaven. It would be like talking to a friend on the phone. In other ways, too, like when you sneezed, Eugene, bless you, you'd say. Your bumper sticker might read, smile, Eugene loves you. And if you hit your thumb with a hammer, it would sound less sacrilegious to shout, Eugene, damn it. It's just a thought. I could be wrong, but I don't think it would be disrespectful. Anyway, Gene be with you. You know, there's two things for me going on in this poem. Number one, sometimes God needs to come down a little bit. You know, we give him these powerful names, the great creator, the divine one. I read a book several years ago with the title, 1,000 Names for God. Hey, I'm struggling with one. Never mind the other 999. So it brings God down to our level. And the other thing is, do we really need a name for God? Do the clouds have names? Do the trees have names? to the rocks. Nothing in nature has a personal name. And yet, as soon as we assign it to a human being or to a God, it comes with connotations and other things that separate us. And if we believe in the idea of monism, that we're all together in this, and excuse me, and everything's one, then maybe names get in the way. Thank you.
My contribution is from one of our, what many of us consider our patron saint of poetry in the UU world, Mary Oliver. Now, Mary Oliver usually gets read at this time of year, and one poem in particular where it talks about what are you going to do with your one wild life. But I thought I would share this other one that also calls to me. It's called Wild Geese, and especially because some of you have read about my current obsession with the Michigan birds. Anything that has wildlife, I'm now all over it. She writes, "You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about your despair, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and the deep trees, or the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things." Now, what calls to me about this poem is especially because one of our beliefs is that with inherent worth and dignity, you do not have to be good. You do not have to prove yourself. You do not have to arrive with certain degrees. There is no separation between us Nothing that says you have to be good in order to be loved, respected, cared for. You do not have to be good. You do not have to repent through the desert. You do not have to beat yourself up. You can just be with all of us together. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Especially going into the new year where there are lots and lots of resolutions of, I am going to make my body different than it is, or I'm going to punish my body for what it was or did or ate or anything else. But what if we loved our body, or the soft animal of our body, exactly as it is? What if we let it love what it loves? Sometimes it loves a walk. Sometimes it loves being on the couch. What if we allowed it to love what it loves? What if we created a place where we could honestly, vulnerably, and with a certain amount of security that we needed, be able to tell each other about our own despair and listen to others of their despair? What if we could do that for each other? All of these things are happening, and meanwhile, the world goes on. I definitely know that feeling a long, long time ago when I saw the musical Rent for the first time. And there's this amazing song about if you don't know, the musical Rent is all about the AIDS crisis. And there's this story of one character who dies, and then another character is noticing this person, their friend, has died, and yet every day the sun continues to come up. How is this possible? Meanwhile, the world goes on. The sun comes up, the pebbles are still out there, landscapes are still going on, the mountains and the rivers. It gives us both encouragement because they're stable, and also, how could this be? It's amazing how all of these things happen at once. And the wild geese high in the clean blue air are heading home again. I think of us heading home wherever we are. And how, no matter how lonely, the world continues to offer itself to our imagination if we are only but open to it. Every day there's some new possibility, and we need to be able to keep our minds open and our possibilities. Most of it is from our own self. Where are we blocked? But what if we notice that the world is there and we opened ourselves to the mystery of the everyday? Every day, the geese call to us, it's wild, harsh, and exciting. Have you seen geese? Gosh, they are, whenever I lived in Chicago and I'd walk along along the lake path, and you see the geese, they are beautiful out there. You don't want them next to you, right? You stay away from the geese, because these geese that don't, I mean, they don't have arms. You think, well, how dangerous can they be? But they can be. So you stay away from them, and you can also respect them and care for them from that distance. They call to us over and over, announcing your place in the family of things. Sometimes we need these wild animals to remind us of who we are and what we bring to the world as well. So thank you to Mary Oliver for these words and the ways that each of us coming here today, have different words that either came to us as individuals or came through other people, reminding us of connection, joy, and love for everyone. Thank you also for listening well while David played the singing bowl. This part of our service is now complete. Thank you all. And now we will have our joys and sorrows. Thank you.
3 candles for the intentions that rest in the silent sanctuary of our hearts. One for the joys, one for the sorrows, and one for the strength of the gathered community that can support you and bring you peace. The offering that we take each Sunday isn't just a stale habit. It's an opportunity to recommit to this place and to these people. Our offering is an affirmation, a yes. When we give, we say yes to something we value. With our gifts freely given, may we say yes to the values of our faith. May our offering help us practice Unitarian Universalism within and beyond our congregation as tools to empower our mission. Please rise as you're willing and able for our hymn from the gray hymnal, number 15, Lone Wild Bird.
Is still with thee.
For our closing words, our Unitarian ancestors remind us we are one. Our Universalist ancestors remind us we are loved. And I would like to end with not exactly a poem, but part of a prose from a poet that you might find familiar. Rainier Marie Rilke in Letters to a Young Poet. Have patience with everything unresolved in your heart, and try to love the questions themselves as if they were locked rooms or books written in a very foreign language. Don't search for the answers, which could not be given to you now, because you would not be able to live them. And the point is to live everything. Live the questions now. Perhaps then, someday in the future, you will gradually, without even noticing it, live your way into the answer. Amen.